Next part is here. The next morning, Emma stood behind the counter of her bakery, the scent of cinnamon, swirls, and golden croissants hanging in the air, but her mind wasn't on the pastries. It was on Adrian. On last night. On that almost kiss that lingered like the aftertaste of something bittersweet. She had barely slept, replaying every word, every glance, every shift in his voice. And then there was her, Madeline. Elegant, poised, and so clearly from Adrian's world. The world Emma didn't belong to. Not really. A customer called her name, breaking her thoughts. She smiled politely, filled their order, and rang them up with mechanical precision. On the outside, she was the picture of calm, but inside, she was spiraling. Adrian had said she belonged where she wanted to be. But what did that mean? That he felt the same? Or that he was drawing a line? By mid-afternoon, she found herself staring out the front window, watching the busy street but not really seeing anything. A soft voice snapped her out of her daze. "Busy in there?" a familiar voice said. Emma turned. Adrian stood at the entrance, dressed down for once in a navy sweater and jeans, but somehow he still looked like he belonged on a magazine cover. "You're early," she said, brushing her hands on her apron. "I figured I'd beat the crowd," he replied with a half-smile. They stood in silence for a beat. She nodded toward the back. "We can talk in the kitchen." He followed her past the counter, past the whirring machines and trays of cooling bread, into the quieter heart of the bakery. Here, surrounded by flour and steel, Emma felt more grounded, more herself. "So," she started, turning to face him, "what brings you here? Checking up on your investment?" Adrian leaned against the counter, arms folded. "You think that's all you are to me?" Emma hesitated. "I don't know what to think anymore." He watched her carefully. "Last night, I shouldn't have let her talk to you like that." Emma shook her head. "It's not just about her. It's everything. This world, your world. The way people look at me like I'm some charity case or novelty. It's hard not to feel like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life." "You're not," Adrian said quietly. "This bakery, everything you've built, it's yours. You earned it." "But with your money," she countered. "With your talent," he shot back, "and your work. Don't downplay that." Emma looked away, unsure of what to say. Adrian stepped closer, the scent of his cologne mingling with the vanilla in the air. "You think I help people on a whim?" he asked, his voice lower now. "I've seen hundreds of pitches, sat across tables from Ivy League grads and startup bros with perfect suits and fake smiles, and none of them had half the grit you do. That's why I invested in you, because you don't just make good bread, Emma. You are the brand." Emma blinked, caught off guard by the intensity in his voice. "I didn't do this out of pity," he added. "I did it because I believe in you." She felt her throat tighten. "Adrian, last night, when you looked like you were going to—" She paused. "What was that?" He didn't look away. "What do you think it was?" "I think," she said slowly, "that you're as scared as I am." A beat passed, then another. Adrian reached out and gently brushed a flour smudge from her cheek, his hand lingering longer than it needed to. "Maybe I am," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't get close to people, Emma. Not really. Everyone always wants something, but you just wanted to survive." "I still do," she said, her voice cracking. "But I don't want to lose myself trying to fit into your world." "Then, don't," he said. "We'll build one that fits you." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She searched his eyes, unsure if she was dreaming again. But what she saw there wasn't just admiration or curiosity. It was real, raw. Before either of them could say another word, the kitchen door swung open and her assistant poked her head in. "Emma, you're needed out front. Press is here. Some lifestyle magazine, I think." Emma blinked. "Press?" Adrian grinned. "I might have mentioned the bakery to a few people." She narrowed her eyes. "You're impossible." He stepped back with a wink. "And you're late. Go work your magic." Emma watched him as she headed back out front, her heart hammering. The bakery was buzzing again, just like it had on opening day, and outside, the line was growing. But this time, The butterflies in her stomach weren't from nerves. They were from something much more dangerous. Hope. Hope that this wasn't just business anymore. Hope that maybe, just maybe, Adrian Blackwood was becoming more than just the man who changed her life. He might just be the one to define it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The bakery had gone from a passion project to a full-blown phenomenon. Articles were published, influencers posted glowing reviews, and Emma found herself on the cover of a local business magazine with the headline, "The Bread Queen of Fifth Avenue." She hated that title, not because it wasn't flattering. God knew she never imagined herself being in a magazine, but because it made her feel like a character, a mascot, like people were falling in love with the idea of her more than the real woman. The girl who still triple-checked her bank account before buying groceries. The girl who had to fake confidence when talking to high-end suppliers. The girl who, despite it all, still woke up some mornings wondering if it could all vanish. And then there was Adrian. Ever since that night, that look, that touch, things had changed between them. He still visited the bakery often, always under the guise of business, but the air between them was heavier now, loaded with things left unsaid. Sometimes his hand would brush hers as he handed over a report, lingering just a moment too long. Other times he'd look at her like she was the only real thing in a world full of shallow people. And Emma. She felt herself falling, hard, but she couldn't afford to. Not now. Not when everything she had built was still so fragile. She didn't want to be the story of the girl who got a bakery because she slept with a billionaire, so she kept her distance. Professionally, at least. Until the night everything cracked wide open. It was a Thursday, late. The bakery had closed hours ago. Emma was cleaning up, sleeves rolled up, music playing softly from her phone. Adrian walked in without knocking. He had a key, something he insisted on for emergencies. Emma barely looked up. "You're late," she said, brushing crumbs off a tray. "You weren't expecting me," he replied, his voice casual but his eyes sharp. She didn't answer. Adrian set a bottle of wine and 2 glasses on the counter. "I figured we could celebrate." The second location deal came through. "Brooklyn, here we come." Emma finally looked up, surprised. "Already?" he nodded. "Signed it this morning." She hesitated, then slowly set down the tray. "You should have told me." "I'm telling you now," he said, pouring the wine. "Come on, live a little." She accepted the glass reluctantly. He raised his and she mirrored him, their eyes locked as they clinked glasses. "To Emma Carter," he said, "the woman who turned flour and fire into a citywide addiction." She laughed softly. "You always make me sound like a myth." Adrian shrugged. "You are a little." They drank in silence for a moment, the room dim and quiet, except for the soft jazz playing in the background. "I've been thinking," he said suddenly, setting his glass down. "About what Madeline said." Emma tensed, he continued. "She's not wrong. You don't belong in my world." Emma's heart twisted, and she set her glass down too fast. "Well, thanks for confirming." "Wait, no." He stepped closer, fast, his voice urgent. "I mean, you don't belong in it because you're better than it, better than all of them." Emma stared at him, caught off guard. "You're real," he said. "You don't care about headlines or money. You built something from nothing, Emma. I inherited power. You earned it. That scares the hell out of people like her." Emma's throat tightened. "It scares me too." Adrian reached out, gently touching her wrist. "You scare me." She blinked. "Me? You make me want things I told myself I didn't need." Her life outside boardrooms and contracts. Someone who sees me as more than a name or a paycheck. Emma's voice trembled. "Adrian, if this is some game—" "It's not," he said, stepping closer. "I tried to keep things clean between us. Business only. But every time I walk into this place and see you, it's harder to pretend." Emma's heart pounded so loud she thought he might hear it. He was so close now she could smell the wine on his breath, the clean spice of his cologne. "You said once that I don't know you," Adrian whispered. "Let me." She should have stepped back. She didn't. Instead, she closed the space between them, her lips finding his like it was the most natural thing in the world. And for a moment, the bakery was silent. The city faded. The doubts melted away. It was just them, just Emma Carter, the girl who used to sell bread on the sidewalk, and Adrian Blackwood, the billionaire who somehow saw her before the world did. But when they finally broke apart, the world came rushing back, and with it, the weight of everything that kiss had just changed. The morning after the kiss, Emma woke up feeling like the world had tilted slightly on its axis. Everything in the bakery looked the same, the sunlight casting golden lines across the countertop, the smell of proofing dough, the distant hum of the city beyond the windows. But she didn't feel the same. Not even close. Adrian hadn't stayed. After the kiss, they had stood there in silence for a while, hearts racing, not knowing what to say. And then, without a word, he had kissed her forehead gently, said, "Good night, Carter," and walked out. He always knew how to leave a moment hanging in the air like smoke. Now Emma was alone again, rolling dough with trembling fingers, wondering if she had just stepped into something she couldn't control. She wasn't afraid of Adrian hurting her, not in the way most people hurt each other. No, what scared her was what she felt, how fast it was all happening, how real it felt. He made her feel like she was worth something, but also like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. Around noon, Adrian didn't show up like usual. No call, no text, no casual drop-in with that smug little grin and some ridiculous suggestion about expanding into croissants or gluten-free. Biscuits. She told herself not to read into it. He was busy, he was always busy. But a quiet anxiety started gnawing at her gut. And then, just after closing, it happened. 2 men in sharp suits walked into the bakery, not customers. They didn't even glance at the display case. One of them looked around and gave her a small, almost polite nod. "Miss Carter?" Emma dried her hands and approached, wary. "Yes?" "We're here on behalf of Blackwood Enterprises Legal Affairs," the man said, pulling out a folded envelope from his coat. "Mr. Blackwood is currently out of town. We've been instructed to deliver this." Emma blinked. "Legal affairs?" He didn't explain, just handed her the envelope with a cool, professional nod and turned to leave with his silent partner. She just stood there staring at the envelope like it was a live grenade. Her fingers shook as she opened it. The letter inside was short. Too short. "Effective immediately, your ownership share in Emma's Artisan Bakery will remain unchanged. However, the investment partnership with Blackwood Enterprises will be placed under review. All future decisions, expenditures, and expansions will be frozen pending Adrian Blackwood's return." Emma read it 3 times before her brain caught up. Under review? She felt cold, betrayed, confused. What the hell had happened? Adrian had just talked about opening a second bakery. He had kissed her. He had looked at her like she was the only real thing in his world. And now this? A review? Legal terms? Suddenly everything felt like a trick. Like she'd been played without even realizing she was in a game. She locked the door and sat down behind the counter, the letter clutched in her hands. A million questions flooded her mind. Why hadn't he told her? Why send lawyers instead of a call? What did this mean for the bakery, for her? The next day she called, no answer, not even voicemail. She texted. Nothing. She called again. Still nothing. And then, late that evening, a knock at the back door made her jump. It wasn't Adrian. It was a woman in a grey blazer, early 40s, with sharp eyes and a clipboard in hand. "I'm sorry to disturb you, Miss Carter. I'm Simone Levine, Blackwood Enterprises Audit Department. We've been instructed to conduct a full review of the partnership." Emma stared. "A what?" "Standard protocol," Simone replied, stepping into the kitchen without waiting for permission. "Given Mr. Blackwood's current absence, we're to ensure that all funds, operations, and resources are accounted for." Emma followed her, heat rising in her chest. "He didn't say anything about an audit. He didn't say he was leaving." Simone didn't look up from her clipboard. "Mr. Blackwood's decisions don't require approval. He often travels on short notice. We're here to make sure everything continues to run smoothly in his absence." Emma felt the walls close in. Everything she had built, everything she thought she had with Adrian, was now buried beneath cold procedure and corporate silence. She was back to where she had started, alone, overwhelmed, and clinging to something. That might be slipping away. Only this time she wasn't a nobody with a cart. She had something to lose now, something big, and she wasn't going to let it be taken from her. not without a fight. The next morning, Emma was in full survival mode. She didn't have the luxury of breaking down. The bakery needed to open, staff needed direction, customers needed their morning bread. And so, with swollen eyes and a tight throat, she plastered on a smile and went about business as usual, kneading dough, organizing shelves, taking orders, all while Simone from the audit department paced in the back with her clipboard like a crow circling something already dead. Emma hated how fake everything felt now, how something she had built with love and labor was now being poked and prodded by a woman who had never baked a day in her life. Every question Simone asked felt like an accusation. Every note she scribbled felt like a countdown to something. Emma couldn't quite name, still no word from Adrian. By noon she gave up pretending. She handed the counter off to her assistant and retreated to the office in the back, slamming the door behind her. She pulled out her phone, heart pounding, and tried calling him one last time. Straight to voicemail. "Adrian," she said, her voice shaking, "I don't know what's going on. You said you believed in me. You said this was ours, and now you've disappeared, and you've sent strangers to pick through everything like you've already walked away. If this is over, just say it. But don't leave me in the dark." She hung up and stared at the phone, half hoping it would ring back instantly. It didn't. That night after closing, she did something desperate. She Googled him. Adrian Blackwood disappears from public eye amid corporate shake-up. Her blood ran cold. There were articles, lots of them, whispers about boardroom conflict, shareholder, concerns, internal reviews. A new name popped up in every piece, Madeleine Voss. Apparently she had once been a board member. Rumors suggested she was working to take back a controlling stake in Blackwood Enterprises, and Adrian had gone quiet right in the middle of it all. Emma stared at her screen, breath catching. Madeleine. Of course. That woman wasn't just some old flame with sharp heels. She was the storm, and Adrian was right in the eye of it. She scrolled further and found something that made her stomach lurch. Sources confirm that Blackwood has frozen several private investments and small business partnerships, including his recent funding of a bakery venture in Manhattan. Details remain unclear. There it was, in black and white, her. She was just a line in some article, a detail in someone else's disaster. Emma closed the laptop and sank into the chair, fury and fear twisting inside her. She had trusted him, she had kissed him, and he hadn't even warned her this was coming. He'd just vanished, and maybe that was the worst part, how quickly he'd gone back to being a ghost in a penthouse. But Emma Carter wasn't the same girl who pushed a bread cart through the streets anymore. She picked up the phone and dialed, the only person who might still be on her side. Simone answered, her tone clipped. "Audit department." "I need Adrian's location," Emma said without hesitation. There was a pause. "That's not something we're authorized to share." "Miss Carter," Emma's voice dropped. "Tell him this. If he doesn't come see me in person by tomorrow, I go to the press. I tell them everything. The investment, the kiss, the bakery, all of it. So if he's still got anything left to lose, he better show up." Simone didn't respond for a long moment. Then, "I'll pass on the message." Emma hung up and dropped the phone on the desk. She didn't know if she was bluffing or not. All she knew was she wasn't going to be swept aside like some forgotten side project. If Adrian Blackwood was going to break her heart, he'd have to do it to her face. The next morning came and went. No Adrian. And then, just after dusk, as the staff was cleaning up, the bell above the door rang. Emma turned, heart lodged in her throat. There he was, wearing the same perfect suit, the same cool expression, but he looked different. Tired, hollow around the eyes, as if he hadn't slept. In days, their eyes locked. She didn't speak, neither did he. Finally, she broke the silence, her voice icy. "So, you're alive." Adrian didn't flinch. He walked slowly toward her, but Emma held up a hand. "No," she said sharply. "You don't get to stroll in like nothing happened. Not after what you did, or didn't do." "Emma, you lied to me," she said, voice rising. "You made me believe in this, in us, and then you disappeared. You let her walk into my bakery and tear everything apart. Do you have any idea what that felt like?" He closed his eyes. "I didn't lie to you. I left to protect." Curtsy from what? She snapped. From the fallout of your empire collapsing? From being publicly linked to the girl who used to sell bread from a cart. Adrian's jaw clenched. From Madeline. She's trying to take over. She's using every mistake I've ever made against me, including this partnership. Including you. Emma's breath caught. She filed an injunction, he said. Said I misused company funds for personal gain. That this bakery wasn't an investment, it was a gift. For someone I had improper relations with. The air between them froze. Emma took a step back. So that's what this was to her, a bribe, a toy. No, Adrian said, his voice breaking. Not to me, never to me. He took a step closer, but Emma's voice cracked as she spoke. Then why didn't you fight for me? I am fighting, he said louder now. You just couldn't see it. I froze the expansion not to abandon you, but to protect you from getting dragged into a legal war. You should have told me, she whispered. You should have trusted. Me. Adrian looked at her then. Not like a businessman, not like a billionaire, but like a man who had finally realized how badly he'd messed up. You're right, he said quietly. I should have. The silence between them hung heavy. Emma didn't know what came next, only that everything had changed again and the decision was now hers to make. That night, after Adrian left, Emma sat alone in the bakery with the lights off, the soft hum of the city filtering in through the glass storefront. The chairs were stacked, the ovens cold, and yet her thoughts burned hotter than ever. He said he had been protecting her, that Madeline had weaponized their connection, that everything, the audit, the freeze, the silence, was to keep her name out of a scandal. Maybe he meant it. Maybe he was telling the truth. But truth didn't erase the feeling of abandonment, of waking up every morning and wondering if she had dreamed the whole thing. Adrian may have had good intentions, but intentions didn't change what she went through. She stared at the bakery sign, her name glowing softly in gold above the windows. Emma's Artisan Bakery. It wasn't just a dream anymore. It was her life. And no one, not Adrian, not Madeline, not a corporate boardroom, was going to take it from her. The next morning, she woke with a decision in her gut like a stone. She didn't need a man to fight her battles. Not anymore. If Adrian couldn't stand in the light with her, then she'd step into it alone. So when the email from a local business reporter landed in her inbox, asking if she'd be willing to do an interview about her incredible rise from street vendor to bakery queen, Emma didn't hesitate. She said yes, and she told the truth. Not all of it. Not the kiss, not the wine-slicked confessions in the kitchen, but everything else. How she'd struggled, how she'd met Adrian, how he believed in her when no one else would, and how, despite the complications, she refused to let her work be seen as anyone's charity project. I built this, she said, her voice steady as the recorder clicked beside her. He helped, yes, but this bakery is mine. The article came out 2 days later, and it spread like wildfire. The bread queen who made Manhattan kneel. From cart to empire, the real story behind Emma Carter's rise. People loved it. They ate it up like her cinnamon rolls. The comments flooded in, praise, admiration, curiosity, but not everyone was happy. The next day, Madeline Voss walked into Emma's bakery, in person. She didn't wear a smirk this time. She didn't bother with small talk. I warned you, she said, her voice sharp like a blade. You should have stayed in your lane. Emma didn't flinch. Funny, I thought I paved this lane myself. Madeline's eyes narrowed. You think this is over? That article might have won the public, but this isn't about popularity. It's about control. Emma stepped out from behind the counter, standing toe-to-toe with the woman who had tried to erase her. I don't care about control, she said quietly. I care about what's mine. And this bakery, it's mine. You want to take Adrian down? Fine. That's between you and him. But if you drag me into your war again, I promise you, next time I won't be so polite. For a moment, Madeline looked genuinely surprised. Then she laughed. How you've got teeth, I'll give you that. And just like that, she turned on her heel and walked out, leaving the scent of expensive perfume and war behind. Emma didn't relax until the door shut. The bakery fell quiet again, but that silence didn't last long, because later that evening, Adrian returned, He walked in like he always did, but this time there was something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Pride. "I read the article," he said, stopping in front of her. She crossed her arms. "Let me guess. Damage control?" He shook his head. "No, it was perfect. You told your story, and you didn't let me off the hook." Emma stared at him. "You disappeared on me." "I know. You let her threaten everything." "I know. You kissed me and then ran." "I know." He took a breath. "I'm sorry, Emma." Her throat tightened. "I don't want to hide anymore," he said softly. "Not from my board, not from Madeline, not from you. I love this place, I love what we built, and if you'll let me, I want to keep building it with you." Emma blinked, stunned into silence. Adrian stepped closer, closing the distance between them once again. "But if you'd rather I walk away," he added, "I'll do that too. I won't make this harder for you." The choice was hers. Her heart thudded in her chest. She looked around the bakery, the shelves, the flower-streaked counters, the memories soaked into the walls. She looked at Adrian, the man who had changed everything and nearly lost it all by trying to protect her the wrong way. Then, without a word, she reached for his hand, his fingers wrapped around hers. "You don't get to walk away," she said quietly. "Not this time." A slow smile spread across his face, real, relieved. And this time, when he leaned in to kiss her, she didn't stop him. There were still battles ahead. Madeline wouldn't disappear. The board would push back. More headlines would come. But, for the first time, Emma knew exactly who she was. Not a project, not a pretty story, a fighter, a baker, a businesswoman. And now, something more. The final days of fall arrived with crisp mornings and golden leaves drifting across the sidewalk in front of Emma's artisan bakery. The line still wrapped around the block most mornings, but the buzz was different now. Less about novelty and more about loyalty. Emma had become more than a success story. She was a symbol, proof that you didn't need a silver spoon to carve your place in a city built for the rich. But behind the counter, where the air still smelled like cinnamon and sugar, Emma could feel the quiet storm still brewing. The bakery was thriving. Her relationship with Adrian, though still new and uncertain, felt real, different. There were mornings when he'd show up with coffee before sunrise, no business talk, no meetings, just him, quiet, steady, human. But they both knew the calm wouldn't last, because Madeline Voss wasn't done. It started with whispers. A former employee accused Adrian of misusing company funds. Another claimed he was inappropriately involved with a business owner he'd invested in. The stories twisted truth with poison, fueled by anonymous tips and tabloids hungry for scandal. Emma woke up one morning to find her own face splashed across a gossip site, from bread girl to Billionaire's mistress. The rise of Emma Carter, her stomach turned. When she got to the bakery, she found a small crowd outside, not customers but reporters. Microphones, cameras, flashing bulbs, asking questions she couldn't answer. "Emma, did Adrian Blackwood fund your business as part of a personal relationship? Are you concerned about being implicated in the Blackwood investigation? Is your bakery just a front for his money laundering schemes?" She pushed past them, her heart racing, hands trembling as she locked herself inside. An hour later, Adrian stormed through the back door. His jaw was tight, eyes stormy. "I'm handling it," he said immediately. "My PR team is already issuing statements. We'll shut this down." Emma stared at him. "They're calling me your mistress, Adrian." "I know, and I'll sue every last one of them if I have to." She shook her head, voice rising. "This was never supposed to be about us. I worked for this. I broke myself for this. Now they're saying I'm just some kept woman." He moved toward her, reaching for her hand. "Emma," she pulled away. "What if they take everything? What if this bakery becomes part of the fallout? I can't lose it, Adrian. I can't go back to pushing bread down the street." He looked at her for a long moment. Then, quietly, he said, "Then let's protect it no matter what it takes." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to let him carry the weight of the storm. But this was her fight too. The next day she did something no one expected. She held a press conference. She stood on the steps of the bakery with microphones shoved in her face and a crowd of reporters throwing questions like daggers. Her hands, Shook, but her voice didn't. "I am not a mistress," she said firmly. "I'm a businesswoman. I bake my bread. I pay my staff. I built this bakery from the ground up. Yes, Adrian Blackwood invested in me, but not out of romance, out of respect. And if anyone wants to question that, they can come inside and try a slice of my sourdough, because I promise you, it's the only thing in this story that isn't half-baked." The crowd laughed. The tension eased. She saw Adrian standing in the back, smiling like she was the only person that mattered. The press couldn't spin that, not when the public was already rooting for her. A few days later, the storm began to break. The legal case Madeline tried to build fell apart when a whistleblower admitted the documents she submitted had been falsified. Adrian wasn't going down. If anything, the backlash hit her. Her name started disappearing from the headlines. Slowly, but surely Adrian's empire stabilized, and Emma's bakery soared higher than ever. They celebrated quietly, just the two of them, one evening on the rooftop of Adrian's building. The city glowed below them, distant and soft. "You really showed them," Adrian said, handing her a glass of wine. Emma smirked. "I showed you," he grinned. "You did." They clinked glasses, the skyline stretching behind them. "I thought I'd lose everything," she admitted softly. "But instead I found something I didn't know I even needed." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "A lawyer?" Emma laughed. "No, a voice." He studied her for a long moment. "You've always had one, Emma. You just finally stopped whispering." There was a pause, and then Adrian reached into his jacket and pulled out a small box. Emma blinked. "What's that?" He opened it slowly. "Not a ring. Not yet. But a key. To the second location," he said. "Our second bakery, in Brooklyn. And this time, your name's on every document. No shares, no conditions. It's yours." Emma stared at it, emotion catching in her throat. "You really believe in me that much?" Adrian leaned in, brushing his lips softly against hers. "I believe in you more than you believe in yourself." As the city sparkled below them, Emma Carter, once a bread seller nobody noticed, stood beside the man who had almost lost her, holding the keys to a future no one could ever take away again. And this time she knew. She hadn't just built a bakery. She had built a life on her terms, and that was the sweetest thing she'd ever made.